You had an extensive surgical overhaul. You look 20 years younger. Your peasant coworkers say nothing. You. There's so many funny plastic surgery and medical memes out there that I thought that I would take some time and do a video and share it with you where we can have a bit of fun with them. My name is Dr. Anthony Youn and I'm known as America's holistic plastic surgeon. I help health-conscious men and women look their best by teaching them a holistic approach to beauty. And today we're gonna have some fun with some plastic surgery memes. Let's go. Students invent bacteria that eat plastic. So you see on this picture, you've got these scientists that have created a bacteria or invented a bacteria that actually eat plastic, and there are the Kardashians and the Jenners out there, and they're a bit worried. So don't worry, this is not something that's real, but who knows, maybe someday this is something that will be, and they gotta watch out. When your filler wears off, I don't know, is this a cat or a dog? I think it's a cat, and it's got a ton of wrinkles. So that's something that I hear from my patients all the time, that they're worried, not so much filler wearing off, but Botox. So we get people who've got really deep lines, they get Botox done, things smooth out, and when they come back, obviously, they look a bit different. So this is a funny one. I don't know that this is a cat that I would adopt though. You had an extensive surgical overhaul. You look 20 years younger. Your peasant coworkers say nothing. You. This is one of the funniest little dolls I think I've ever seen, and I love little dolls. We've actually, my wife and I have actually adopted 3 little ones ourselves, and so this is funny because there are so many people who come to my office, and I do a lot of facelifts. I probably do like 1 facelift a week, and everybody's different. There's those people who don't want anybody to know, and they're so worried that people are gonna spot their scars or that they've had surgery. And then there are those like this one where they really want that attention. So I guess my recommendation would be is if you do want the attention and you've had a facelift or you had this extensive surgical overhaul, then share it with everybody and let everybody know, and even share it on social media, because then everybody will definitely find out. Before and after. Oh, this is so mean. I'm surprised that it doesn't have Jimmy Kimmel in this one. I think Mark Wahlberg looks really good. I mean, and I don't even know, he may even be younger than Matt Damon. Oh, not nice at all. Extensive deep plane lift and CO2 resurfacing, PRP, upper and lower blepharoplasty and lip lift. And they turn Danny Trejo, AKA Machete, turned into Keanu Reeves. If I'm right, I think Danny Trejo has actually served some time. So whoever made this meme up, you better watch out. I think that he's a tough guy. But if you have these surgeries with me, this is how you can look, like Keanu, kind of. I'm gonna tell my kids this was Botox and you got Superglue. There is some truth to this. I guess maybe more like that this was Dermabond. So Dermabond basically is skin glue. So those people who have like, you know, small cuts, we can use this skin glue and put it on the skin. And there are people who actually do the same thing using real super glue. It's not something that I recommend. I haven't looked actually at the ingredients in super glue, but my guess is that if you've got an open wound, putting super glue on it's probably not a good idea. But yeah, super glue, oh, buyer beware. Patients before their first dermal filler treatment versus their second. This is so common. I get patients who are so nervous, and it's normal to be nervous. I mean, these treatments are kind of scary. That's one reason why I do like sharing them on social media, because hopefully it takes a little of the fear out. But you know, they're not nearly as scary, I think, after you've had it done than you may think that they will be. And so we do these treatments, and it's very common that people come in and they're so nervous, and we have people that almost pass out. I had a patient who actually seized on me because she was so nervous. We started injecting, she started passing out, then she actually had a couple of kind of seizure activity. So this type of stuff happens, And then they come back the second time and it's like, yeah, they're chill, it's no big deal, because they know that, it's not nearly as scary as they make it look. The only difference for this is if you get your lips done, because lips can hurt like hell. Patient, is this gonna hurt, friend? So quite often I do see patients who come in, they bring a friend with them, and sometimes the friends make things better, and they tell them, oh, I've had this done, you're gonna be fine, it doesn't hurt that much, and it's gonna look great. And then you get those other friends that are like, make it worse. And somebody's about to get Botox and they're like, are you sure you're ready? Are you sure? Do you want to cancel? Are you sure? And they make the person even more uncomfortable. And the worst situation is sometimes I've done surgery where I've had a patient, like a female patient, come to see me. We do 3 visits before surgery. We've spent like an hour and a half together going over everything, and they're confident, they do all the testing, and then they show up to surgery with their husband, who I have never met before. And the husband is not happy. Don't bring somebody who's like pissed at you or who's mad that you're having something done, because if the person is not, you don't need more stress in your life. And neither do I. When you get your lips done and none of your friends notice. This is a guy who's really can't sleep because he's so upset. So this is something that we see all the time, where people come in, they get their lips done, and initially they're so puffy and swollen, but they only want a little bit done to their lips. So by the time the swelling comes down, you just don't see a whole lot. The other thing I think that we see a lot in plastic surgery is that we think that people are paying attention to how we look. We think our spouses know how we look. I'm the worst at this. My wife recently, I had her hair done, chopped a lot of it off, and it took me like 3 days. I didn't notice, but I'm like a dude, and I totally didn't notice. And we were in an airport one day, and she starts laughing, and she's like, I had my hair chopped off 3 days ago, and you still haven't noticed yet. So we think that people know how we look. We think that we can do these little changes, and people are gonna notice. But I think so many of us are so caught up in our own lives, in our own heads, like this idiot right here, that maybe we don't realize when this happens. So if you get something done and people don't notice, it doesn't mean you don't look great. Just be aware that sometimes people are just more in their own heads and just not paying attention. When patients insist on getting filler instead of the surgical procedure they really need, and we've got a Band-Aid kind of holding together a crack in a sidewalk. When you're having cosmetic procedures done, it is really important to know what certain things do and what certain things don't do. It seems almost every day I get a patient come in, and they come in for a filler consultation, injectable filler, and they say, well, I want filler because I want it to lift my neck and lift my jowls and give me a tight neckline. I tell it like several times a day, it seems like. I tell people, filler doesn't give you a facelift. Filler just fills, it doesn't necessarily lift. And this is something that's so important. If you're considering any type of cosmetic procedure, less can be more, but less usually is less. When your swelling goes down after lip filler and you realize you should have gotten the full syringe like your injector suggested. I have 3 expert injectors in my practice, and I think this may be their pet peeve, is that so many people really want to skimp on how much you use. And that's okay if you're looking for a modest change. But when you're dealing with filler, you're dealing with a syringe at a time, and each syringe is only 1 cc. You can't use 1 syringe of filler typically and fill in both nasolabial folds and fill in the lips and fill in some marionette lines. It just isn't going to go that far. So keep that in mind, and you're not going to end up like this crying little cat. Husbands in plastic surgeon's waiting room while their wife gets a mole removed. Oh my gosh. We've got Quentin Tarantino who's pissed. So, there is a lot of, it's called plastic surgery infidelity. And it's not, thank God, patients cheating on their spouses with a plastic surgeon, but it's patients who have stuff done and they're not necessarily being honest with their partner about it. I think a good example of this is I had a patient of mine, she was a female who was I think in her late 50s, early 60s. And she said, Dr. Youn, I want to have a facelift. I don't want my husband to know. It's none of his business, and he's not going to notice anyway. And by the way, he's gonna be gone for a week on some business trip, so I wanna do it right after he leaves, and I need to look good by the time he comes back. I'm like, what? You're not gonna tell me I had a facelift? And she said, no, he's not gonna notice, don't worry about it. So we have HIPAA laws, we have patient privacy laws, so of course, if she doesn't want her husband to know that she had a facelift, it's not my place to tell him or to tell her she has to tell him. I mean, I said, look, if my wife had something done, I really would appreciate knowing. I mean, that's part of a healthy relationship. But we did the facelift on her, and a week later, she still had sutures in, she was still a bit swollen, and she was bruised. And he came back from his business trip, and he never figured it out. And she saw me a few weeks later, she was so happy, and I said, did you ever tell your husband? And she said no, and he never figured it out. So be careful with cosmetic infidelity. It is infidelity. I'm a happily married guy. I've been married for almost 20 years now, and my wife and I are very honest with each other. So it does bother me. I feel bad when I see this, but it is reality, unfortunately. When you and your friends all go to the same injector. So yeah, it's funny, I don't know that I see so much injectors where you have the same result, but classically in plastic surgery, nose jobs, there are certain appearances of noses that you can target to certain doctors. I don't see as much now as we used to in the past, but here in my area in Metro Detroit, back in the day, there were a handful of cosmetic and plastic surgeons who did most of the nose jobs in town. And people would call it a Dr. So-and-so nose because they all look the same. And I've trained with certain doctors where they do the same thing on each patient, and so the noses all look the same. I don't know that you see it quite so much, and plus now I think there's so many other doctors who are doing it, but there is definitely truth to this. So if you had fun with this video, check out my next video on mean comments. Every day I get some of the meanest comments about me, about how I look, about my voice, about how I dress, and I share some of them with you and my reactions on the video coming up. I hope you enjoy it.